Welcome to the spirit world, answering your questions on angels, demons, and how the spiritual and physical worlds interact. And now your hosts, Debbie Georgiani and Adam Bly.
Well, hi there, and welcome to the spirit world. This is our Mailbag edition for December, and we're going to be answering your questions and comments that have come in through Facebook, or if you sent them in by email at tsw@grnonline.com. And we'll get to as many of your emails as possible, but we only have an hour to do so. So Adam will always begin with the St. Michael prayer.
In the name of the Father, and the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. St. Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. And do thou, O Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, cast into hell Satan and all the evil spirits who prowl about the world, seeking the ruin of souls. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen. So, Adam, we may have to do and we loved doing the mailbag shows. We may do another one later in the month in December, because we are getting an abundance of emails and comments coming in. So we're just going to jump all around. We're going to separate the emails, demonic activity versus the questions about the holy angels. So we'll cover the holy angels in one episode all by itself, because it's very important and we don't want to keep jumping around all over the place. So I'm just going to cover the demonic situations that seem to be happening and people are wanting answers for. So let's start with this, because Beth likes to go on Facebook, and I love that, and we get Beth's comments there on Facebook at the Spirit World Podcast. And she said recently, she's hoping that we're considering interviewing a formerly possessed person. She thinks that would help others to avoid the mishaps of demonic possession. What do you say to that, Adam? I know you addressed it on a previous show about 6-8 months ago, but I would like you to answer Beth right now about this, because I know others are commenting as well. They'd like us to have somebody that was previously possessed that we could interview, so we could find out some of how they're doing and how it happened and all the details. But you want to share something else that's even more important about that.
Well, Beth and Deb, we've talked about this a little bit. The church tries to be really protective of people's privacy and their dignity, which is why no recording is allowed at exorcisms of any kind, and you're supposed to keep confidential, who's there and who's asking for prayer. If you imagine, you had a relative and it were to leak out to the press that they were receiving, solemn exorcisms, there would probably be reporters on the front door the next morning on the lawn there asking for interviews. There would be strange letters arriving. The person probably would have a lot of their life really disrupted. And most people that have been through exorcisms and then been freed, that experience possession, most of them do not want to be known by the public. The man who was the basis of the movie The Exorcist, he was a little boy at the time. The real case that Blatty was inspired by when he wrote the script, or wrote the book and then wrote the script, he kept his identity secret his whole life, and he's passed on now. But, the last thing he wanted was to be known and basically harassed and have your privacy destroyed. So that's part of it. Another part is, once somebody is free, they generally want to move on to be doing positive things for God and positive things in their life. They don't want to revisit and talk about the trauma that they went through. It would be kind of like asking somebody who had been through like a war situation and had PTSD to go back and then talk about the combat situations that gave them PTSD, but uglier because of the things people go through. That's part of it. There's been one person in all these years coming up, a little bit here, coming up on 20 years, there's been one person who really wanted to have their story told. And they were a former Satanist who had done a ritual to cut a deal. But even they wanted their story to be told, and they wanted to be recorded giving it, but they needed to be in silhouette, and they wanted their voice changed because they feared the former people that they were working with would recognize them and possibly hurt them. So
Right.
one person out of all the cases over the years wanted to do that, in charity, to warn other people about black magic and Satanism because of what they went through. But everybody else is, once you're free of that garbage, they just want to be positive and move on and not look back. And they also don't want to have their lives destroyed by people harassing them.
Right. And I understand Beth's intention because they could provide some insight on how we can avoid all these things so we don't have to go through that pain and that suffering and that kind of level of what could happen to the person. But that's why we have you here. You're in this work on a weekly basis. And so you can share with us as best you can, right? That you're free to share as much. I mean, are there any restrictions put on you that there's certain things you cannot share with us?
Well, we would never share like the actual names of people or, anything that would make a person identifiable. So it's kind of like in psychology, like if you talk about a case study, you use
generally.
You do it generally. You tell the general story without giving identifying details.
Right, right.
Yeah.
But that's why I love that we're able to do this show with you as an expert in the work that you do in exorcisms. And I think that helps us. I mean, tremendously. It's helped me. You've shared where the stumbling blocks are, where the portals are, what things to avoid, what things to focus on. And that's very important. So I hope that helps, Beth. But Beth had another comment on a previous show that we did about, it came up in some of the calls, the number 666. And Beth wanted you, Adam, to address the reference to this number and how people sometimes get obsessed with this number and stay away from it at all costs. They don't want to go near it. Why don't you give a little brief understanding of the number 666? Yeah.
So, we shouldn't be afraid of numbers, first off, but here's the backstory on that reference. John, we're not sure if it was the Apostle John or which John it was, but there was a John who was exiled to the island of Patmos during the Christian persecution by the Roman Emperor Nero. And he had a particularly vicious persecution of Christians. And this John was exiled. And he was writing letters back to the Christian communities that were still basically active, in the Roman Empire, in Rome, as kind of encouragement to them to persevere in the spite of just the horrible things and how much death and torture was going on. It was a letter to inspire them. And the 666 is actually merely the encoding of the name Nero into Hebrew numbers. And so it was basically written in a way that somebody who knew Hebrew would realize that decoded into the name Nero. But for the most Romans who didn't know Hebrew, they wouldn't be able to understand that. And so it was kind of a coded message, essentially. So the beast he's referencing there was Nero, who was, basically the most vicious persecution they had seen to that point. In the Bible, there are double meanings in some things.
Sure.
And sure, there could be a double meaning in reference to the Antichrist. Nero was an Antichrist in the sense that he was, directly opposing and trying to destroy the church. So there's different ways to look at it, but really primarily it was merely encoding the name Nero, and we shouldn't be unduly afraid of numbers. That's basically superstition. And you're also giving evil too much control in your life and too much deference if you're saying, I'm going to avoid this number because, it's associated with the devil. If you start going down that road, the same thing happens with when Satanists want to usurp and take over Christian holidays and put rituals on them. We don't want to withdraw from that and say, well, they're now claiming that date, so we're no longer going to celebrate that holy day, that kind of thing. Basically, you just have to let it go.
Okay, good. And great answers. And Beth, thank you so much. Keep the comments coming on Facebook. You can always grow the family there on Facebook at the Spirit World Podcast, or you can email us for an upcoming mailbag show, tsw@grnonline.com. But stay with us, because coming up next is Timoteo's question on dreams, Adam. We're going to dive into dreams and if there's any demonic activity there when we come back on the Spirit World for our mailbag edition. We'll be right back.
Have you heard about life coaching? Hi, this is Coach Felicity with your Stand Tall Today Coaching Minute. Coaching is one of the things Jesus did with his disciples. Whenever they were stuck, overwhelmed, or even struggling a bit, Jesus asked questions that brought clarity and hope. He then used ongoing conversations that helped them to navigate the path and completely change their lives. Just like the disciples, we too can find ourselves feeling stuck, overwhelmed, and struggling a bit. Maybe you need help in your marriage or with a parenting issue. You're navigating a loss, you want to improve your health, or advance your career. At StandTallToday.com, our experienced coaches will help you to take another look at life, renew your hope, get past those challenges, and step into living abundantly. You can find out more about coaching and schedule a free introductory call by visiting us at StandTallToday.com. Listen, life is too short to stay stuck. Contact us at standtoday.com.
St. Paul writes in 1 Corinthians 1:17, Christ didn't send me to baptize, but to preach the gospel. Many evangelicals see this passage as an indication that baptism is not necessary for salvation. But is this true? The answer is no, and here are some reasons why. First, I don't think Paul meant I don't have authorization to baptize. If that were true, well, then he would have acted in disobedience when he baptized Crispus, Gaius, and the household of Stephanas, which he tells us about in the preceding verses. But we don't want to say that. It's more likely Paul was being hyperbolic in order to stress, one, the focus of his ministry, which was to preach, and two, it doesn't matter by whom you're baptized, which was the topic of discussion within context. Is Paul denying the necessity of baptism? I don't think so. I'm Carlo Broussard with the ready reason for Catholic Answers, Catholic.com.
The Spirit World continues with Debbie Georgiani and Adam Bly. We're not taking live phone calls today. Please email your questions to tsw@grnonline.com.
Spirit World, and so we hope you stay tuned in so you can see if your question has been answered. As promised, we're going to go to Timoteo's email that was sent in recently, Adam, and Tim says, "Good morning. I would like to thank the entire team for the service of your ministry." Well, thank you, Tim, for listening to the Spirit World and promoting it on social media. That's a good use of social media. I understand from church teaching that and admonitions from the saints not to take dreams seriously. Yet I am puzzled with a series of dreams that happens sporadically with no pattern to the frequency. But the content is what's puzzling me. In each dream, I'm struggling, even fighting with 2 or 3 people. Again, I understand not to take stock in dreams, yet these dreams puzzle me. Is there something to this, or just should I ignore them? I had such a dream last night. That's what's prompted me to ask. Thank you, and God bless everyone. Timoteo. Now, before you address Tim's email, Adam, let me just share with you that Tim's situation with these very active dreams of fighting with somebody or having somebody chase them or pin them down, or we've gotten at least, I'd say, 24 of these types of emails. So do you want to just address pretty much everybody in a general sense, but also tailor it to Tim's question?
Sure, Deb. So we can kind of address this in general. So dreams have a couple functions when we look at them from kind of a brain and psychological standpoint. One is we're pretty sure that a good part of dreaming is kind of moving short-term memory into permanent long-term memory. So the important events of the day, and the brain kind of does that process probably maybe earlier in the night, and then finishes that process. And so some of it's kind of a replaying of the important events of the day. The second thing that we see a lot in psychology, and there's different emphasis on this depending on which school of psychology you're learning, but that dreams can be symbolic to internal psychological processes and kind of issues that are unresolved in us. So in that case, describing fighting with the person could be symbolic of an ongoing personal struggle with somebody, who knows, over a business deal, or somebody in the family that you're not getting along with, or somebody that you feel is trying to dominate you in life, maybe a work situation. The mind can sometimes play out those anxieties and fears in dreams that are symbolic of the things that are bothering us. And the extreme version of this is nightmares, of course, where they generally come either when we filled our head with nightmarish images during the day and they kind of get replayed in that moving into long-term memory thing, or the nightmares come when we're in extremely high stress, and that represents that the mind is kind of preoccupied with that and trying to process it a little bit. So that's all the psych stuff and the brain stuff. And that, I think, is the basis of why we shouldn't put too much stock in dreams, that they're necessarily coming from, God or the demonic. Now, all that being said, there are scriptural references to God sending dreams to people. We know, the very clear example with Joseph, receiving dreams where angels gave him instructions that were important in his journey of taking care of Mary and the birth of Jesus. So we know that God, of course, can do that. God can do anything. But generally, God is not speaking to us in dreams as a normal thing. That's something that happens, but it happens, probably very, very rarely. The more negative, I have seen over the years people that are already embroiled in a kind of demonic problem, whether it's oppression or possession. They will have repetitive demonic dreams, but it is only one of the many symptoms of a bigger demonic problem. So if a person's just leading a normal life and they have a demonic dream one night, that doesn't suddenly mean that they're oppressed or possessed. It just means that they had a demonic dream. These images and ideas are all through our culture. A person could get scared and worked up about something in life, and then it comes out in that form in a dream. It doesn't mean that you're having an extraordinary demonic problem. Mm-hmm. So all of that, and then the thing we've mentioned before on the show that I have found in practice to be very helpful is if you're in doubt about whether a dream is demonic in origin or whether it's just a nightmare, especially if it's repetitive, get some holy water from your Catholic church, put some in your palm, just a little bit, wet your hands, and then close your eyes and pat down your entire head, including your face, your closed eyes, your ears, right before you lay down to go to sleep. And what I found over the years is that stops demonic nightmares on a dime for that night. And so that's one way you can test whether it's spiritual or not. Now, of course, your mind could just kind of through auto-suggestion say, well, I did that and therefore I shouldn't have these dreams. And then you may not have the dream just because of your mind's kind of the power of suggestion on yourself. So I'm not saying it's foolproof, but it will stop demonic dreams if they're spiritual in origin, and you would need to do that each night. So all that being said, Deb, generally you do want to ignore your dreams. They're representing your life struggles coming out in your sleep. And then if they're really like the exact same movie playing over and over again, maybe talk with a therapist. And if you think it's spiritual, do the holy water that I just mentioned as kind of a litmus test.
Where did you get that from with the holy water on the head and the top of the head? Is that from your exorcism work, or did a priest tell you that, or did you just learn that from experience, or what?
Yeah, so that came out of working with people over the years that are either oppressed or possessed, or people living in demonic infestation situations. And it just came to me one day. It's been so many years, I don't remember when, but it just kind of came to me as an inspiration to try that. And it worked, and it's worked in every case since.
Is that because the thoughts or the memories or it comes in through the mind? Is that why you're just choosing on focusing on the head?
Well, I think it's, the senses scripturally are really important.
Okay.
So the senses are kind of the gateway to the mind. And so I do think, protecting the head and the brain in a sense spiritually, but also touching the senses with holy water. You're closing your eyes, you're touching your eyes, touching your ears, the front of your face and your nose. You're kind of sanctifying your senses for that evening. And I think if we look at Thomas Aquinas, if we look at how are demons allowed to tempt us, they're allowed to activate the imagination, which is kind of like playing a movie of a memory that you have, and then excite the passions to want to pursue that sin again.
Right.
And so we know that the demons, by God's permissive will, are allowed to kind of activate and replay memories we have of sin, and that is what temptation is. And so we know they're given some access to influence us. And that doesn't mean we're all possessed or all oppressed. That's just temptation.
Okay. Okay, so staying on that same line of about dreams, this is a longer email, but it's gonna take me a while to read it, but I think it's important, the details, for Adam to make a comment about this, or a couple comments, and we can talk about it a little bit. So let's take some time with this email. And this comes in from Francis. Says, Salve Regina, thank you so much for your show. I find it very edifying. Well, thank you for sending in this email. I have a question regarding a supernatural event that happened to my wife, and I would like Adam's opinion on why perhaps we were allowed to see what we saw. Okay, Francis, Adam's going to take in all the details. I'm going to read it slowly. My mom's neighbor is a famous cancer research doctor and medical school professor. Her husband died of natural causes around the age of 45. My wife and I only knew her as my mom's neighbor. However, she invited all of us to her husband's funeral since he was Catholic and she was Hindu from India. Her husband was an American. We quickly agreed and made friends with her as she began to want to learn everything about the Catholic Church. We were very happy to go to her house and talk for hours about the saints and the Catholic faith. Soon after, she mentioned that she was having spiritual dreams of the Lamb of God and that I somehow was meant to be part of her plan for future things. I was a little taken back by that statement, but just chalked it up as her being a grieving widow and not thinking clearly. A few months later, we had moved 4 hours away, and she contacted me saying that she really needed for us to meet in person because she was probably moving soon. So we drove down and we met with her for dinner and had some conversation. Around 3 a.m., we were still there, and she was talking to us about wanting to get a theology degree. And then suddenly, now here's the part that this is where I'm stumbling on, because I will tell you this is really, I think, very deep in a strange sense. Suddenly, her face looked like hot wax was poured over her face, and her black eyes turned a yellow-green color. Wow. Her thick and they got very thick and got very thin and bald, and her face morphed into an old woman with her nose growing in length and size. She went from 45 years old, an attractive woman, to an 85-year-old balding woman. Wow, with creepy yellow-green eyes. Her voice did not change at all. Wow. And this is unbelievable. I was shocked and could hardly believe what I was seeing. Yeah, I'm having a difficult time even reading it. I kept blinking my eyes, saying to myself, maybe I'm just sleepy. Well, shortly thereafter, it was late and we had to go. We walked out, and when my wife and I got out at the edge of the driveway, my wife said to me, did you see her face morph to that old woman, like a witch? Her eyes turned green. I said yes, and then we said let's run and get out of here. After that, we never returned her phone calls. My question is, what could have been the meaning behind that? I know her family was still practicing Hindus, and she herself had done medical research papers in using yoga for therapy. But I still wonder if I could have been tricked by a demon to cut off ties with her, or was it a warning? I would like to hear your opinion. This is from Francis. Now, you're hearing me gasp and stumble on this because I have to tell you, Adam, I'm very visual, and as I was reading this, I'm picturing, you're sitting with this person, you're trying to, talk the faith with them, you're minister to them, you're becoming friends with them, and then in front of your eyes, this person changes into a creepy-looking witch-like, face. I mean, that's horrifying. But in your work that you do, have you ever seen anything or heard anything like this?
So the two things one thing is common, one is less common that's related to this. So the one that's common is during exorcisms, as different demons are running the body at any particular moment. So it's no longer the human, they're unconscious, and this other personality is running the body. Not all the time, but usually the voice will change at least a little bit, and then the shape of the face will change a little bit, but it's more that the muscles of the face are pulling in a different way than you're used to, and so it's a very slight change in the way the face is held and it appears, not going from a 45-year-old to an 85-year-old and suddenly seeing wrinkles and all of that, and certainly not suddenly seeing them be bald. But there is a little distortion in the face that can happen from the muscles moving in strange ways. The eyes, I've seen film footage, very close-up film footage of eyes going from regular brown eyes to pure white, where a particular spirit took over, and both the iris and the pupil were white, and the white of the eye was white. And you could see the circles of the iris and pupil. It's not like the eye was rolled back and it was missing. And then when that spirit switched like that, it went back to brown. So I've only seen that once.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I want to talk a little bit more about this because I find this email to be very creepy, but I will tell you that, I mean, just from reading it, I have my own just personal thoughts on it. I just want to see if I'm thinking correctly on this. But you hear the music. Stay with us. This is our mailbag edition of the Spirit World. We hope you send in your emails for a future mailbag show at tsw@grnonline.com. We'll be right back.
Are you feeling lost in a sea of overwhelm? Hi, this is Coach Felicity with Stand Tall Today Coaching Minute. Many people find themselves challenged with overwhelm. Too many things to take care of, too many people to please, too much work to do. And in spite of their best efforts, they continue to fall behind with this overwhelm coming in like a flood. But that's not the abundant life that Jesus wants you to live. That's why Stand Tall Today has experienced professional coaches that will assist you in dialing down that overwhelm. They'll help you get a grasp on where you are and to create a plan that enables you to take bite-sized steps of action so you can live an abundant life. Why not take your first step right now? Go to standtalltoday.com and find a coach that is just right for you. Because life is simply too short to stay lost in a sea of overwhelm. This is Coach Felicity with your Stand Tall Today Coaching Minute.
This is a Messy Family Minute with Mike and Alicia Hernan. How do you keep God in your mind once you're done with prayer and daily mass? It's different for each of us, but one tool we've learned to use in our family is Christian music. Whether you're working around the house or driving the car, it's far more uplifting to listen to than the overplayed secular love songs, and God can speak to you through it.
It's amazing how transformative good Christian music can be. Music can help us memorize scripture and remind us of the providence of God throughout the day. It can teach kids the Bible in a way that they love, and kids can make music their own. As they grow up, encourage your children to pick out Christian music that they personally can relate to. There's all different genres, from chant to country to contemporary.
St. Paul exhorts us, sing psalms, hymns, and inspired songs to God from your hearts. Music can help deepen your love for God and lift your spirit to Him throughout the day. Try it this season and see.
To find more resources for your family, visit us at messyfamilyminute.org.
The Spirit World continues with Debbie Georgiani and Adam Bly. We're not taking live phone calls today. Please email your questions to tsw@grnonline.com.
Okay, this is our mailbag edition of The Spirit World. You can also like us on Facebook and grow the family there at The Spirit World Podcast. So, Adam, let's go back to Francis's email. I'm kind of stuck on it, and I'll tell you why. And if you listen to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie, and 8.5 years we've been doing Take Two, I think our Take Two family knows that I'm pretty much, what you see is what you get. I kind of say what's on my mind, and I just put it all out there. And I'm kind of stuck on Francis's email because, his wife saw this change with this woman. He saw the change. It was very creepy. I mean, even reading the email, I got kind of creeped out by it, because if I was sitting there and I saw this woman that I was talking about God and talking about Jesus with, and was trying to be friends with this woman who lost her husband, and then all of a sudden her face, contorted or changed or morphed into whatever, and it was creepy, and just, I would be literally running out of there going, I'm out of here, goodbye, don't call me, lose my number, because something is really wrong. So let's go back. I just want to ask you this question. Is it possible, because one of the things he says in this email is, he says, could it have been a trick? Could it have been tricked by the demons, to cut off ties with her as a warning, or was it a warning on the other side? So either which way you want to look at it, was there any kind of demonic involvement there? But then he goes back to saying that she did do medical research papers on yoga for therapy. So is it possible that, she was being used? Is it possible, I'm just asking this question, is it possible she was being used by the demons at her weakened, compromised state, and it was funneling through to Francis and his wife, and they're trying to do a good thing by ministering to her because she just lost her husband, and then out pops kind of a demonic presence that is that possible? I mean, it is kind of creepy that it all happened and they both saw it.
Yeah, so my guess about what's going on there, I guess let me back up a little bit. When the demons do any kind of preternatural, things that are unusual like this, it's to manipulate people. It's not done just for fun. So you see, if you back up, you say, okay, they're talking with this person, they're ministering to them, and then a scary thing happens and they leave and they probably don't go back. And it sounds like that worked. So basically a spirit was trying to scare them away. And it worked. Now, it's unlikely that her hair fell out and she was suddenly actually bald in front of them, right? But the demons can create illusions in the senses of people if the person is in a place that really is the demon's territory. And so if that house was really, they had strong rights to the house, they had strong rights to this person, if all that was true and you entered into that home and you kind of knew, or maybe would have guessed, maybe with the yoga particularly, that, there's some entanglement with other spirits here beyond the creator, and you're choosing to enter that, and by ministering, you're challenging the spirits that this person is basically, under their sway.
Right.
They're promoting them, they're promoting yoga, that type of thing. So you're basically challenging them and threatening their program. And this would be a powerful piece on the chessboard, because this is a medical researcher who's writing peer-reviewed articles that are going to have an impact. So my guess would be is that her hair didn't actually fall out in the face, the eyes didn't actually turn yellow, but that was an illusion that was shown to both of them. through their senses. And the demons in extraordinary situations can do stuff like that. So I think it was just designed to scare them away. The clue there that perhaps it wasn't a demon so much taking over the body as an illusion is that in the email you read, it mentioned that her voice didn't change. So it sounds like the doctor was still talking and they were maybe even finishing the sentence and, finishing their conversation, but this scary face is there. If a demon takes over the body, generally they're going to cease the conversation and start, verbally attacking the people that are there or physically attacking them. So I think it was a scam, a show.
Like a parlor trick that
Yeah.
you always say?
Yeah.
Okay, so let me ask you this question then. And you use the word scary. I can't think of another word other than creepy, because that just would, I don't know, because I'm so visual. If I saw that happening right in front of me, I'd be like, gotta go. It's time for me to leave now. But what should Francis and his wife do? I mean, obviously pray for this woman. If the demon was saying, this is my territory, this is my turf, leave here, try to scare them with a visual image, and they left, are they giving in now to those demons? What can they do to combat that is my point, and it even help to, I guess, save this woman from whatever clutches she's in?
Well, the most powerful prayer we have as Catholic Christians is the Mass. And so I would actually have Masses said for this woman maybe once a month.
Okay.
For her conversion and for her to get clarity about whatever spirit she may be entangled with. And then, of course, pray for her, particularly asking Mary to intercede in this woman's life and bring this woman closer to her son in an exclusive way, not as one of many gods, which is usually the way, from a Hindu perspective, I think Christianity would be seen as just another perspective on God, as opposed to Jesus is the one God, part of the Trinity, which is the only creator. So she needs, a deeper understanding and conversion there. If a demon's putting on a show like that, you're kind of getting into territory where you probably want the professionals, people that have experience dealing with the fully manifesting demon,
Right.
as opposed to you just continuing the conversation or starting to challenge it verbally, because it could, move into physical violence and whatnot. And he was there with his wife, and so I think to protect your wife, you would want to get her out of that situation. And this woman needs to ask for help too. So it's not that the priest isn't going to come and intrude on the woman and say, you're going to submit to prayer now. The woman has to go to the church and say, I think I have a problem. Please pray deliverance prayers for me. So it's a little complicated, but yeah, the rosary, the Mass, and then...
That's good stuff to
Yeah.
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 Because I'm sure they walked away feeling like, well, what could we do? We left her behind. She's in trouble. So that was actually, Francis, thank you for that very detailed email that helped us share the responses with the Spirit World listeners. So thank you. Okay, so this next email, we've received this one or a form of this one at least 4 or 5 dozen times. I mean, unbelievable how this keeps happening, where somebody gets injured or gets hurt and they go for some kind of physical therapy, or they go to a chiropractor, or they go to some kind of massage therapist to get some relief and some help. And it falls into all these energy manipulation, chakras, Reiki, and this one is addressing craniosacral. That's where it's the massage on the brain to kind of hold the brain up to relieve any pressure and stuff like that. So talk about this, Adam, this energy healing stuff that is happening, where a lot of practitioners, a lot of doctors now, medical professionals are into a form of these kinds of therapy, or they'll recommend it, because I know it happened to me going through cancer treatment. Wonderful oncologist suggested different therapies that could help alleviate some of the pain that I was going through, and a lot of it had New Age roots to it. And so, but they're doing that because they're trying to get people relief without having to go to drugs or anything like that. So you're going to also talk about the church document that's out there that kind of covers this, I know, and we posted this already on the Spirit World Podcast Facebook page.
Yeah, so the things to watch out for, Deb, are whenever you get into energy manipulation of some kind, if it's Reiki or somebody wanting to manipulate chi in your body, or superstitious practices like crystals and other things like that, applying them to the body or taking them home. Sometimes the muscle testing, I think I've seen that be linked to a pretty significant spiritual problem in a person. And all of this is included in the Vatican document, Jesus Christ, the bearer of the water of life. That's Jesus Christ, the bearer of the water of life. It's easy to find. You can Google it. It's on the Vatican website. And that was a multi-year study that the church did of New Age practices and beliefs, and basically said that, all of these things, yoga, Reiki, the energy healing, it's incompatible with the Christian life, because number one, it's not substantiated by science as working, and number two, it is superstitious and kind of relies and calls upon a belief in powers that there's no evidence for, that are at worst spiritual realities that are incompatible with the Christian view. So these practices are forbidden by the church as being incompatible with our lives as Christians, and I think there's good reason for that. Now, if it's, as we've talked about, Deb, if it's just straight physical therapy, like if you were to say just get regular massage, that's just a physical thing that you're doing. And if there is legitimate chiropractic, though in general, chiropractic is not forbidden, it is strongly discouraged. And there's a USCCB, United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, document from, I believe it's 2007. We could check and post it later. That basically concluded, that these type of things are incompatible for Christians. So there's a number of problems with these things. The bottom line is, whenever you hear about energy manipulation or using objects as like talismans or magical items like crystals, those are your big red flags. And also like laying on of hands without any like real, just basic physical medical reason for it, like with regular massage. If there's just kind of a strange laying on of hands, you want to be, I think, cautious about that and be asking the person what they're intending that they're doing to you.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but it's my understanding with chiropractic care that if you went to a chiropractor for straight spinal adjustment to adjust the spine and that's it, there's no other manipulation or any kind of energy healing or anything that's out there as New Age, that can be acceptable based on some of your as a treatment. Am I off on that? Because I've been told by other priests that it's okay, but.
Yeah, I mean, if you rely strictly on the USCCB document and the Vatican document, you would say that chiropractic is not substantiated and it's discouraged as incompatible. I think most people would say that as long as it doesn't involve manipulation and supposed spiritual energies, right, that it's not as kind of big of a deal. But if you want to be strict about it, it would be included in the no-no list.
Okay. But discouraged, not forbidden.
Discouraged,
correct?
Yeah.
Not forbidden. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't mean to cut you off. Did you want to finish that thought?
No, that's it.
Okay. Well, you're going to hear the music one more time. We're going to hit the pause button in just a few minutes, and then we'll come back for the final segment and the last couple emails and comments that have come in. I just wanted to say again, you guys on Facebook, you have been so kind to us. with the beautiful comments. Adam and I are so humbled by them, and we love you so very, very much. It is so wonderful. You love the spirit world, and you want to see it grow and continue, and that's wonderful. So thank you, and thank you to all the affiliates that carry the spirit world. We appreciate it. Please, we're trying to grow the family on Facebook. We say it every single time we do this show, and we are growing, which is wonderful. So all you have to do is find us on Facebook and tell your friends. You can pass on the episodes there. It's wonderful. Taylor does a great job at posting them right away, and then you can send them out. We believe that's a good use of social media. And all you have to do is like us at the Spirit World Podcast. Now, for a future mailbag show, you can send in your emails to tsw@grnonline.com. And that's where you can send a comment in or a question. If you want to title it in the subject line, tell us if it's referring to demonic activity or referring to the holy angels. That'll help us separate, because we are going to have to split the monthly mailbag shows into the demonic activity side, and then of course the beautiful holy angels side we'll be discussing. So there's the music right on cue. When we come back, the final segment of our monthly mailbag show, and more of your emails coming up here on The Spirit World. Stay with us.
Protestants believe Christians can be absolutely sure they're going to heaven because John tells us in 1 John 5:13, "I write this that you may know you have eternal life." But is this true? The answer is no, and here are some reasons why. First, John writes in the next verse, and this is the confidence which we have in him. For John, the knowledge we have of our salvation is not a certainty without doubt, but a confident assurance, and that's the Catholic belief. Second, we know this is what John means because in verse 15, he draws a parallel between our knowledge of salvation and our knowledge that God grants our requests. Do we have absolute certitude that God will grant our requests? No, but we are confident he will answer. So, Catholics need not worry. John is not teaching Protestant doctrine here. I'm Carlo Broussard with the ready reason for Catholic Answers, Catholic.com.
Have you heard about life coaching? Hi, this is Coach Felicity with your Stand Tall Today Coaching Minute. Coaching is one of the things Jesus did with his disciples. Whenever they were stuck, overwhelmed, or even struggling a bit, Jesus asked questions that brought clarity and hope. He then used ongoing conversations that helped them to navigate the path and completely change their lives. Just like the disciples, we too can find ourselves feeling stuck, overwhelmed, and struggling a bit. Maybe you need help in your marriage or with a parenting issue. You're navigating a loss, you want to improve your health, or advance your career. At StandTallToday.com, our experienced coaches will help you to take another look at life, renew your hope, get past those challenges, and step into living abundantly. You can find out more about coaching and schedule a free introductory call by visiting us at StandTallToday.com. Listen, life is too short to stay stuck. Contact us at StandTallToday.com.
The Spirit World continues with Debbie Georgianni and Adam Bly. We're not taking live phone calls today. Please email your questions to tsw@grnonline.com.
We want to thank Tim Mott, our senior producer, and of course our main producer, Taylor Van Est, for putting this mailbag edition together for our Spirit World listeners. He does such a fine job keeping us right on on pace. I love that. And by my little calculations here, Adam, if you group up all the emails, which we did, we tried to condense everything by topic. We're by the time we are done with this episode, we will have covered about 24 of the spirit world comments and questions that have come in. So we're making progress. We're chipping away at it, folks. We only have about 150 more comments and questions to go, but we will get there. But Adam, you wanted to revisit what we just talked about before the break about these Reiki and other things that are New Age.
Yeah, just really briefly. So during the break, I just double-checked. I wanted to give out the rest of the details there. So within Jesus Christ, the bearer of the water of life, and we're going to put a link to that on I believe, on the Facebook connected with this show's recording, that does specifically mention chiropractic, kinesiology, homeopathy, a bunch of other things as being included in the New Age. And the USCCB document is from 2009, and it's called Guidelines for Evaluating Reiki as an Alternative Therapy. And that is a full document just on Reiki specifically, and how it is not validated by science and is basically something that we're not supposed to participate in as Christians. So I just wanted to share those two. I think they're important to be aware that these things have been looked into really thoroughly. This wasn't just one person looking into something briefly. This is whole committees spending a lot of time researching these matters and trying to apply a Christian lens to them.
Okay. And I'm not trying to split hairs on this or anything, but just going back to chiropractic care, I just want to make sure that especially when it's describing that particular area, they did use the word discouraged, not forbidden. Am I correct, or do you know?
Well, the way the document frames it is that the New Age practices are incompatible with the Christian worldview and the Christian life.
Yeah.
And so it's not so much that they're saying it's forbidden, they're just trying to raise our awareness of it and explaining why it's incompatible with the Christian life. I can tell you, scripturally, of course, engaging in religious practices from pagan religions or other religions, obviously from a Christian standpoint, we're not supposed to be doing that. That would be a violation of the first commandment.
Right.
A lot of these things are taking a piece of other religious kind of systems and taking them out of context and trying to use them as a therapy. So you get into a little bit of a discussion about, well, how far do you have to go into it where you're actually starting to practice a religion and adopt a non-Christian worldview.
Gotcha.
And that's why I think there's more of a discussion maybe to have with your priest, and if you're lucky enough to have a spiritual director, to have with them about, how far you're moving into these practices and how you're thinking about them and how they're affecting you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I have extended family members who are chiropractors, so that's why I have an interest in this area. It's their life's work. So they want to make sure they maintain their Christian status, in a proper way. Okay, so this has nothing to do with the Mailbag show. I just wanted to say, do you know what? I'm taking on your challenges from last week, and because Advent starts tomorrow. So I'm very excited about that. I hope our Spirit World listeners went back and listened to the Advent show, and they are taking on those challenges as well, so we can enter deeply, deeply into the great liturgical season of Advent. Okay, real quickly, we only have a minute. We got to go fast. This is from Petronella, says, thank you for your show. Can bad people put diseases on other people? Thank you. Kind regards.
No, people don't have the power to do that. So if you were to consume a cursed object truly cursed by black magic, that may have an impact on you, which is partly why we say grace over anything before we eat it. But that would be a very rare instance that somebody's going to that effort. People cannot just wish an illness on you. Humans don't have those kind of powers.
Mm-hmm. What about curses? What about that?
Well, remember, Paul tells us that the darts of the enemy just fall to the ground. They don't affect us if we're in a right relationship with Jesus. Mm-hmm. So it's important to stay in a state of grace in order to not be vulnerable to people trying to curse us. And generally, to curse a person, you need to get an object that you have cursed into their possession, into their home, or get them to consume it. So you can't just stand at the corner and spiritually zap somebody and just make them, I
Like
don't
the
know.
voodoo dolls or something like that?
Right. I've never seen evidence that really works.
Okay. Good to know. Thank you so much, you guys. You did a great job sending in these comments and questions. So you hear the music. Again, Taylor Van Est is doing a great job as our producer for this mailbag edition. We'll have another one probably at the end of the month because the mail just keeps coming in, and it's a good problem to have. We love you guys. Don't forget to like us on Facebook at the Spirit World Podcast. You can always email us, tsw@grnonline.com. And don't forget that Adam's issued the challenges for Advent. Go back and listen to the Advent show. Take on the challenges for the season of Advent. And for Adam Bly, I'm Debbie Georgiani. Until next Saturday, have a beautiful and blessed week. We'll see you real soon.